We are pleased to be joined once again by Tara Dowdell, founder and president of the TGD Speakers and Tara Dowdell Group. Good to see you, Tara.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve, for having me on.
Well, you were on the inaugural program we did on our series Think Tank. You added so much. We catch you on MSNBC, a whole range of other places as well. I want to jump right into an initiative that we're involved in. You'll see the graphic on the screen. It'll say Confronting Racism. In the advent of the horrific incident we saw, the death of George Floyd, we should have had it before. We have it now, a series called Confronting Racism. What does it mean to you, for us, all of us, to, quote, confront racism and make some meaningful progress?
Well, Steve, thank you for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to address this issue, which is important and as you said, long overdue, the work that needs to be done. And I can tell you before I begin that I actually have been the victim of racism, extreme violent racism, twice. When I was a child, we had a cross burned on our house in Hillside, New Jersey. Not in Mississippi, not in Georgia. In our house in Hillside, New Jersey, we were the first Black family to move onto the street. And it wasn't that the cross was burned on the lawn. It was actually nailed to our house and set on fire as to burn our entire house down. And then subsequent to that, as a pre-teenager, I was chased by a group of young white men throwing bottles at me and telling me to go back to Africa. And one of the young men in that group was the best friend of a kid that I played with. He was the best friend of the kid's older brother. And so he had seen me at the house for dinner. We had been at the same house for dinner together, and he chased me and a friend of mine, calling us all kinds of names and throwing bottles at us. So that was in New Jersey, and that was recently. And so I think that's just one example, and something I don't actually share very often. I haven't shared it. You probably really haven't heard me share.
No, we've had so many conversations. You never have.
I haven't, and I've always tried to focus on moving forward, understanding the legacy of the past, but looking forward as much as possible. But I'm glad that we're in this moment, because I own a small business, and I can tell you that there's a tax, right? So I pay my taxes to the federal government. I pay my taxes to the state. I pay my taxes to the city of Jersey City, where my business is located. But I also pay another tax as a Black business owner. I pay what we call a Black tax, because the services that I offer are often devalued simply by virtue of me being a Black woman. There's all kinds of data to support this. I'm less likely to be able to access capital. I'm less likely to be paid at the rate that a white male counterpart would be paid for the same services, if not more services. And so we have to come to grips with these issues. We can't look at these things and say that the history hasn't played a role in the situation that many Black Americans face these days. I did everything that I was told to do. I went to the best schools. And it's not to say that just because you don't go to the best schools, you are not worthy of your hard work paying off for you.
No,
right?
you did the right thing, though. You did all the right things.
I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did everything that was asked of me. My family is a military family. We did everything that was asked of us. But the country has yet to do right by us.
You know, I've known you for more than a few years, and our mutual friend, Micheline Davis, and I talk about you behind your back all the time, about how great you are. And I thought I knew a little bit about you, but first, thank you for sharing. Second, for your candor. But here's the follow-up. Are you genuinely optimistic? Are you hopeful that we'll make progress? I don't want to use the word optimistic. Are you hopeful?
Well, I will say I'm somewhat hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic, I think I would say, because we've been down this road before. George Floyd.
Like this? I'm sorry for interrupting, Tara. We've been down this particular road. This moment doesn't feel different somehow? This
moment feels different, but what I'm saying is this is not the first time we've had people take to the streets to address long-standing systemic racism in this country. I mean, before Ahmaud Arbery, before George Floyd, there was Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old who was playing in the park with a toy gun, who was shot. And that police officer is still working. And yet Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy, is dead. There was the guy who was watching an autistic child. He was a caregiver to an autistic child, and he was trying to protect him. He was shot. Luckily, he survived. And there's so many stories. There was John Crawford playing with a gun in a Walmart, a toy gun, a BB gun in Walmart, and he was shot. And so there's so many of these stories, so many lives that have been cut short. And that's just on the policing side. That's not the educational injustices that exist. That's not the healthcare
injustices.
Right, economic. That's just on the policing side. There's a whole just swath of injustice that Black Americans face, while when we actually come forward to have conversations like this, we're often demonized as being lazy and being the cause of some of the disparities that exist in our community.
The role of those of us, not Black, who are white and say we're concerned and believe we are concerned and will make a difference. What's our role? And A, folks who fall into that category. B, those of us in the media.
Well, I think for one, I mean, there's so many things that we need, that Black Americans need in terms of our allies and the support that we need from allies. Is number one, listen to us. You know, we're not out there making this stuff up. These are our lived experiences. These are the things that happen to us. These are the things that we endure. No one wants to come forward to talk about these things, because the second you do, you're going to have threats on social media. You're going to have people trying to get you fired from your job when you speak out. So all
or
the
lose
things
contracts.
Yeah, or contracts lost, right? I mean, I'm sure because I am a vocal person, I know that there's business that I have not gotten because of being so vocal and people not wanting someone as vocal as me representing them. So I'm well aware of that. It's not going to stop me from being vocal, but I am well aware. So we need people to listen, and we also need we need our allies to also be intentional about supporting us, about ensuring that we have the same access to opportunities as others. And I want to make this other point, and I know we don't have a lot of time.
A few seconds left, because I want to talk about the EDA partnership in a second segment, but go ahead.
So the only thing I would say is that don't hold Black Americans to a different standard than we hold other people, right? So of course, on occasion, we will make mistakes. I don't make very many mistakes, but of course, people make mistakes, and oftentimes we're held to a different standard. We're not given the benefit of the doubt that other people have, and it's such a blind spot, even for the most well-meaning people, that they're holding us to a different standard, which comes from years of our community, frankly, being demonized.
A lot of work to be done. Tara, do me a favor. We're going to end this segment, end this show, but I want to come back and talk about the relationship, the partnership with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. I'm Steve Adubato. That is Tara Dowdell, and boy, is she worth listening to. So thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare. PNC, Grow Up Great. The New Jersey Economic Development Authority. RWJ Barnabas Health. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. The North Ward Center. The Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey. PSE&G. And by the Adler Aphasia Center. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network. And by Jaffe Communications.
The essence of the North Ward Center is ingrained in our values, thoughts, and actions. What began as a storefront on Bloomfield Avenue has evolved into a life-changing community nonprofit. The mansion is steeped in tradition, but with all of its grandeur, the true essence of the North Ward Center is in the people we serve. So as the North Ward Center commemorates 50 years of service, let's also celebrate the many opportunities yet to come.